Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of I Love Cambridge, the I Love Cambridge podcast. I've got a special guest on today. His name's Christian Monteiro from Panoramique Media. And if you've noticed that we've got the same last name, it's because Christian is my son. So at any rate, welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm used to editing the show, not used to being on the show.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start off by asking a little bit about yourself. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your company.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my company's name is Panoramique Media. We are a creative media agency based in Cambridge, Ontario. Most of my work takes me outside of Cambridge, but I would love to do more local stuff. But yeah, I do creative media services, so videos, photos, sometimes website creation, social media management. Basically anything in that nature, audio, podcasts, recording, editing, etc. And yeah, so whether you're looking to get some photos done for social media or for some print ads, I can do that. I've done billboards, label designs, kind of anything media related when it comes to video and like visuals, I guess. I've done it.
Okay, good. And then obviously through doing this show where I provide you with poor footage, you can actually make it look good.
Well, it's not that bad footage. It's pretty good. It's not bad. And, but yeah, I take other people's footage as well. Like there's some footage I've dealt with. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago for the Hillside Music Festival. They had a volunteer videographer shoot, and then they had me edit the video the following year. And that guy, basically, long story short, didn't know how to work a camera. So the footage came back green and crooked. And if you were to watch the video today, you would have no idea because I was able to basically take all that.
You could fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting a bit of lag there on your side too. That's a little bit indicative of your Rogers connection.
Oh my God, they've been driving me crazy.
That's
all
okay.
week.
That's all right. You can edit that out.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your client base. First of all, what kind of clients do you deal with, and who is your ideal client? So give us the rundown on that.
Well, clients I've dealt with is businesses of all sizes. I've dealt with corporations. Like my biggest client probably to date so far has been GM Canada. And then I've done tons of videos with small local businesses as well. The ideal client is basically just someone who's looking to pursue media content, especially these small businesses who, they don't have a lot of ad dollars. Some people are still in the mindset of like newspaper, print, billboards, things like that. Not so much, but there is still people out there. And basically with that same amount of money you'll spend on a billboard, I can do 10 times more for you when it comes to video and photo, and then advertising those services or that content on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook. Not as many people use YouTube. YouTube's not too bad, but Instagram's like the big one right now. And that's probably the biggest thing that clients don't do is promote the video that I've created for them. And that's just as equal to the process as it is creating the content.
Okay. So it's not just a matter of creating the content, it's making sure that your content gets seen.
Yeah, like for example, I guess you asked what kind of people I've worked with, like dealerships, for example. I've worked with 1 million dealerships at this point, and one of the biggest pet peeves I have working for these guys is I'll produce anywhere between 1 to 5 videos for them, and then they don't do anything with them. They just sit there. They don't do, they might post it on Facebook, but when you've invested $1,000+ into whether it's one video or again multiple videos, you don't just throw it on your website. You have to put some ad dollars behind it, get it pumped out to the right channels. If the ad is specific for a certain demographic, you want to make sure that you're targeting that demographic online, things of that nature. Sorry, I brain farted on your question.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So when you say dealer, I just want to touch on the dealerships.
Okay.
You're talking about car dealerships, correct?
Yeah, car dealerships. I've done a ton of because of GM Canada. Like I've shot with a ton of GM dealerships, which eventually got me to GM Canada. But I've worked with all brands. I've worked with Nissan dealership. I've worked with a handful of Dodge, Chrysler type dealerships, and some Japanese kind of dealerships like Mitsubishi and whatnot.
Okay. Good. So how did you get started in all this? I know how you got started in it, but I want you to tell everybody how you got started in it.
Well, I just loved movies as a kid, and I pursued that through high school. In high school, I really learned a lot about cameras and the software and how it all works. And then during my time in college is when, just shy of a decade ago now, is when we really started to see a shift between movies and television into things like YouTube and Facebook and all that. Like people, like I myself consume probably about 70 to 80% of the content I consume is probably YouTube, Facebook, something like that. And then the other is movies, whether it's, actually going to a movie or Netflix or whatever. So I was seeing the trend there. And of course, being a videographer and wanting to, shoot things, like actually wanting to create images. In the movie world, I would have taken a decade plus before I would have got my hands on a camera on a big movie set, versus nowadays, because of YouTube and things like that, I can go buy a camera, or even nowadays just use something as small as my iPhone and start creating content and uploading it right away.
Okay. And you've worked on some of those sound studios down in Toronto as well, right?
Yeah, I've done a handful of gigs down in the movie industry. I was on a handful of big sets. I'm trying to think. One of the last sets I was on before I kind of stopped doing some of those was an Adam Sandler movie that shot in Toronto a few years ago. That was probably the biggest set I was on. But yeah, I still from time to time end up there, but yeah, not so much anymore.
I see. Okay. So what do you enjoy most about your work? What part of it do you like the most, and what part don't you like?
Well, just seeing, like I already kind of touched upon the part I don't like, which is when you create the work, especially when you've put so much work into it and it doesn't get distributed properly. It's a bit of a shame, because the company that you're shooting for thinks that strategy didn't work. Like they're like everyone nowadays knows we need video content of some sort. So when I go and work with a company and make that video content, and again, they just kind of dump it and they don't really promote it, then it makes me look bad, and makes them feel bad, because they're like, we just spent $1,000+ on X amount of videos and no one's watching them. Well, the thing with Facebook, especially these days, is it's a great marketing platform, but now it's a free platform. So in order for them to generate revenue, companies like yourself or any kind of small business or big corporation needs to actually spend some ad dollars to get their content seen. The best part about Exactly. Yeah. And it's so small. For as little as $100, you can get seen by a couple thousand people in the area. So I don't know why some people skip that part of the process, because as soon as, if they do that part of the process, they'll see how valuable video is. And I have clients that do that. Obviously not all of them do that. But the ones that do have rehired me and come back to me to hire me again, because they see the success in video content, things like that. Things I do love, of course, is being creative, and just I love learning, and like I knew nothing about cars going into that industry, and I still don't know too much about cars, but I know a lot more than I did 5 years ago, let's say. So I just love educating myself, and shooting, let's say, a car is so much different than shooting a house, than shooting, let's say, food, than shooting a model. So there's always creative challenges with each genre, and I just love doing the creative side of things, and kind of pushing my limits when it comes to each genre. Because with cars, at this point, I've shot so many cars that you can pull up a Civic, you can pull up a Tesla, you can pull up a Lamborghini. The angles aren't really going to change that much, because there's always a certain angle for cars that always makes every car look amazing. But I haven't done like, something I'd like to do more is like model work and things like that, because I've done obviously a lot of real estate for you guys and other realtors in town, and cars again are like my other big one. But yeah, pushing my limits with something like models. I love shooting food. Obviously food is totally different, and so yeah, that's the part of the job I like, is actually creating. And then as long as there's proper distribution, then that part is like I said, people just have to properly distribute the content that I'm making for them.
Good. Okay. So when somebody wants to hire you, what should they consider, or what should they have pre-planned?
Well, they don't need to have a complete vision of the video. They just need to have, or photos or whatever it is, they just need to know essentially where is it going and what is the main overall message. Like I was recently shooting for a manufacturer in town. They clean and manufacture metal parts. And it was a great video overall. It was a very much like a Discovery Channel how it's made style video. But that video unfortunately ended up going a little bit over budget because they just didn't know what they wanted going into it. And so we produced a video based on everything they gave us. And then they thought it was great, but then the higher ups didn't like a few parts in the video. So now we had to go back and film some additional things that we weren't even aware of beforehand. And so like, I don't mind doing that. That's fine. Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure the client has the best product they paid for and they want. But, you know, if I'm going back an extra day, let's say, well, then that will cost them a little bit. And if it's a client that I've worked with a couple times, I'll negotiate their budget and make sure I work within it, because I know these corporations have budgets they work within. But yeah, at the end of the day, if I'm going back because we missed something that you didn't let me know of beforehand, well, that's just going to end up costing you extra, basically.
I see. Okay. So having somewhat of a clear plan of action in terms of what kind of message they want to convey and what kind of action they want their audience to take after watching the video.
Yeah, that and kind of having an idea of what platform it's going on. Like with Instagram and Facebook, I would tend to make more square type videos. Like I'm shooting everything in widescreen, super high resolution. But, you know, if you're telling me that the video is going to end up on Facebook or Instagram, then when I'm shooting it, I'm going to keep that in mind so that way in post and editing, I can reframe the images so that they fit that medium better. You know, something on YouTube, you're going to want to watch it like a show where it takes up your whole screen. But something, again, on Instagram, you want to watch it where it's more like vertical video. So I want to be able to know that beforehand so that way I can make sure I'm framing with that in mind.
Okay. And then I just wanted to touch on in terms of the scope of your training, because there's so many people in this space. Sometimes I find, you know, somebody that can go to Best Buy and buy a camera, all of a sudden they call themselves a videographer or an editor and that sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about your training and what you went through and the type of equipment that you worked with as a result of that.
Yeah, well, I mentioned in college, I went to Thunder Bay Film School back in 2010 to 2012. So there I got my hands on all types of, that's where I really learned about the importance of lighting. Prior to that in high school, I've always got my hands on various cameras. You know, that's when the DSLR kind of revolution took over. And now you see everyone with the DSLRs that shoot high quality, super amazing video. Prior to that, it was just like camcorders basically. Intuitively, I've kind of picked up all these cameras and learned to work with all these cameras. Since film school, I've personally purchased, I don't even know how many camera bodies at this point. I'm on the Sony systems right now. They're like the king of the market at the moment, but I've shot with Canon, I've shot with Nikon, I've shot with Panasonic. I think overall with learning the equipment, you just have to shoot with it as much as you can, and you'll start to learn all the ins and outs of each system. But there's three basic things that each camera breaks down to, which is ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. So as long as you know the angles and you know kind of how to work those three things, you're going to get great quality images out of any camera, really. But yeah, there is a problem with people who go to the store, buy a DSLR, and then say they're a videographer. And the biggest problem is that they just kind of make guys like myself look bad, because, you know, I charge anywhere between, my minimum charge roughly is around $1,000 just to create a minute or so long video for you. And that's with me, my expertise, shooting with you for a day, getting you a full edit, and I'm shooting on all this high quality equipment, 4K, all that stuff. Versus guys who might just come out of Best Buy, just bought a camera, he's gonna charge maybe $200, $300 if he's lucky. And then, you know, the business owner, they're always looking at the bottom dollar. So they're going to hire the $200 videographer guy because they're like, oh, he's $200. How, you know, he'll be just as good as the $1,000 guy. And then he's not. His video does very poorly. Maybe he treats the client very poorly as well. And then as a result, that client is now going to be hesitant to hire someone like me because A, they just spent a chunk of their budget hiring this guy. And they just had a bad overall service with that poor individual. And yeah, just at the end of the day, it just makes us look bad because now, like I said, instead of you could have spent $1,000 and got the exact product you were looking for, but instead you cheaped it out and spent $200-300 and you got a subpar product, and now it's kind of turned you off the whole experience.
Got it. Okay. So now I just want to get to the part of the show where we talk a little bit about Cambridge, because obviously the show is called I Love Cambridge. What do you love most about Cambridge?
Well, being a freelance videographer, I just love how close it is to everything. Like we live not far from the highway, so I like that it's like a quiet suburb type of town, but at the same time, you know, it can be at Toronto within an hour. I've done quite a few gigs down in London. Again, that's another hour. Gigs around here are starting to pick up in Kitchener-Waterloo because of that whole tech boom. We're about 40 minutes or so away from Hamilton, so I've done quite a few gigs there as well. So I know it has, I guess, nothing much to do with the city itself, but I just love the proximity of the city to the major hubs. But at the same time, you know, after shooting in Toronto for the day, I can come back to the suburb and live and, you know, go on a walk on a quiet neighborhood. Yeah.
Very good. So is there a particular spot that you like to go to in Cambridge? Do you have a favorite place that you like to go?
Well, growing up in Cambridge, always loved going to like, right now with the little guy of my own, I love taking him to like LA Franks and just walking around downtown Gulf, that classic summer thing. Lately, we've been taking him to Dixon Park in the wintertime to do the tobogganing and stuff like that. I love taking Noah there, my little guy Noah. Yeah, I personally love walking around the downtown cores now that they're all being revitalized. It's always great as a photographer to walk down there with a camera and just take a bunch of cool new angles that I haven't seen before. Or now with all these movie productions happening in Cambridge, I love walking down there when they've redressed the whole street to look like something else. Like last year, I don't know what they were shooting. It might have been Handmaid's Tale, but I think it was something different where they made the whole downtown Galt, or at least a chunk of it, look like small town America. So I thought that was really cool. So yeah, just kind of exploring the cores. I love checking out, like, I love antique shops, things like that. Like Southworks Antiques is awesome place to get like records and old camera equipment, things like that. So yeah, just checking out the cores and things of that nature.
Okay. Any particular favorite restaurant? The go-to?
The go-to is definitely Nagano on the corner of Pine Bush and it's like a random one to pick, but that's the one we go to the most because
you go there for sushi.
Go there for sushi because the quality is amazing. I don't want to speak ill of the all-you-can-eat places in Kitchener, but they're definitely subpar compared to Nagano. Like Nagano, you're going to pay per roll, so it's a little bit pricier. But overall, the quality is amazing. The service has always been fantastic. And yeah, that's the place we find ourselves going to a lot. There's obviously a bunch of great restaurants in Cambridge, but that's the one that we seem to go to the most.
Good. And let me ask you, if you had a magic wand and you could change anything about Cambridge, what would it be?
Well, I find that maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I wish there was more like festivals and things of that nature. Like I lived in Guelph for 2 years and I really loved the downtown core of Guelph. Like even though we weren't fully invested into the downtown core, like we weren't, you know, we didn't own a business or things like that, but like you just felt there was like this awesome, really inclusive community. Anytime you walked in downtown Guelph, not that you don't get that in Gulf, but just between that and the festivals they held, like it was I really enjoyed my time in Guelph. Obviously, I love Cambridge, being born and raised here, but I would love to see maybe some more festivals, things of that nature. Like we had that street art festival. That was awesome, but I know we haven't had that, I think this would be 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
but that was a fun festival.
That was just a bit of a one-off, but yeah, it was really, really well done.
They did that 2 years in a row, and now Rock the Mill is done as well. So now we've lost Rock the Mill, and I remember back in the high school days, they got some pretty good bands to play that festival a couple times. So I would love to see more festivals and things of that nature. I know there's Galt Love and things like that, which I definitely have to explore more. But yeah, I would love to see something like that. Something festival based would be cool.
Got it. Okay. So now thanks again for being a guest. Where can people find you? You've got a website. I want to share it with people because you kind of spell it funny.
Yeah. So my business name is Panoramique Media. If I didn't register it and everything, I definitely would have changed it at this point, just because the amount of misspells that have happened on that name is insane.
All right, and then so it's spelled a little funny. You spell it almost like in a French format.
It is a French format because I'm a movie nerd, and because in Canada when everything that came out on DVD had to have the French version on it, French. So Panoramique is French for widescreen. So I was the movie nerd at the time.
You killed two birds with one stone.
Yeah, and then but so many people have misspelled it. But yeah, it's Panoramique with a QUE instead of a C at the end. Yep. And that's probably the best place to contact me. There's a contact form. You can email me, send me your contact info, and maybe a brief description of your idea. You can also check out a chunk of my work that I've produced. I kind of put the best of the best on the website there, so you can check out that as well. And then shoot me a question, and I would love to chat with anyone who's looking to get content made. Whether you're a restaurant looking to make a menu, or you need some social media management, or you're a dealership looking to move some cars, or just do a overall what I call a welcome video, which is basically a minute or minute and a half long video just showing off the dealership, the staff, and kind of the friendly overall experience you may have if you were to shop and buy your car there, for example. Okay,
very good. And you're on social media as well, of course, and on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Panoramique Media across all the socials, and those are all linked through the website as well. And so you can also shoot me a message on there.
Perfect. And is there a phone number for old guys like me who don't want to go online?
Okay, I got a brand new phone number, so
so let's hear it.
Okay, so it's 647.
Yep.
521. Yep. 7026.
Okay, perfect. So somebody can reach you the old style way.
I believe I've updated all my channels with the new phone number because I've had the last phone number for almost a decade, and then that debacle happened last week. So ideally I've updated all the channels, but yeah, that's the new number. So you can text me or call me.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Chris.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on. I look forward to editing this video of myself.
Okay, perfect.